One of the most exciting things as a dressmaker is the wonderful details in the designs like those of Coco Chanel at the V&A, and know that we can copy them. And even if we don't want to set ourselves to the same technical skill and time involved in a couture piece, we can still look at those details and repeat them in a simplified form. And the Chanel exhibition was bursting with fabulous ideas, from bows in self fabric incorporated into the dress as applique embellishments, or adding a little contrast of colour to organza flowers, felt flowers, used in different ways to make dresses look so much prettier and more interesting. And shapes. There was a wonderful 20s garment with, rather than scallops, had a crenellated edge or bias cut panels stitched into the bodice. All kinds of ideas that we as dressmakers, even dressmakers who are at the beginning of their journey with a limited skill set at present, will be able to use in their own creations. So today I'll show you the catalogue, but point out as we go the details that we can copy ourselves. And in this dress, which is from the summer of 1919, we see that ballet pink and also these chiffon appliques. She used them a lot, and I think they are just so incredibly pretty. The whole dress is organza, in fact, and of course we see this lovely bow tied at the waist. Another feature of her outfits was extraordinary beading and sequin work, obviously for evening dresses, and we can see that 1920s dress there with this wonderful beading. And of course there was a lot on perfumes, but I'm most interested in dresses, so skipping over that. A wonderful dress from 1922 with all this embroidery on chiffon. More from the 20s, this incredibly ornate embroidery work. It does make you realise that couture is something else altogether, isn't it? One of the things I like about the V&A catalogues is they always include wonderful details if we're talking costume. And look at these. I initially thought these were swimming costumes, knitted swimming costumes, which they had in the 20s and 30s, but they're not. They are ballet outfits for Diaghilev's Ballet Russe. We're still in the 20s with those fringed flapper dresses that we associate with the 20s. And of course, too, in the 20s, we see Chanel introducing the little black dress. These beaded examples at the moment, but there were quite a few little black dresses in the exhibition. We don't photograph terribly well little black dresses, but there were quite a few. Although Chanel wasn't the only designer to use black, she was a great fan of the LBD, as we can see here, with all the fringing that we associate with the 20s. And of course she did jewellery too. Now this dress, what I really wanted to point out was the details. I might put in a little close-up of this going, of course, into the pleat effect of the skirt. That idea could be around a hem. It would take an age, but I thought it's a really lovely little detail. And then the other thing I wanted to point out for dressmakers is this simple silk black bow against that ballet pink. How effective is that? These outfits are interesting because, although maybe they don't look as exciting as the summer dresses, evening dresses, they're interesting because Chanel introduced tweed, which has always been a rather country-ish. I love tweed because it's always been considered rather country-ish fabric. But Chanel loved sports clothes and those kind of country pursuits. And she persuaded the Scottish that lightweight tweed was a good idea. And she said she had terrible trouble persuading them. And I thought, yes, perhaps she didn't spend much time in Scotland. I don't know, but it can be quite chilly there. I can see why they weren't completely persuaded by lightweight tweed. Chanel brought tweed to the city and made it fashionable. And another shape we see through the 1930s as well, this is a dress from 1929 and we can see it or something like it being worn here, is this shape which I think is absolutely lovely, of a fitted bodice fitted over the hips and then flaring out into this gorgeous, it's almost like a long ballet tutu skirt. It's such a pretty shape and we see Chanel use it throughout the 30s. This little dress, which is at the turn of the 20s going into the 30s, we can easily see a Poirot heroine in that, can't we? It's lovely and flouncy, very wearable even today. This dress, it's not made of lace, it's made of broderie anglais. And I have somewhere in the loft a magazine from 1930 which is all about broderie anglais, because there was an absolute trend for it in the 30s, because it kind of looks like lace, but of course it was much more hard wearing, easy to launder, etc. than lace. So here Chanel is using broderie anglais in this gorgeous, very pale ballet pink shades. Now here is one of my favourite dresses, just like a little whisper of a summer dress, so pretty. But the reason that it's one of my favourites is because, and we see this detail, this is the detail I went absolutely mad for. It's the way that she has cut out around the petals of this printed silk chiffon dress, finish the edges. I mean, it would be a deal of work, but how pretty is that? I think it's a lovely idea. See more of a close-up there. See how those petals have been cut round and the edges finished to form. You know what it's like? It's like a flower fairy, isn't it? And there's somebody wearing the dress very much like it. So lovely. Now look at those details, and when I was in the crowd in the V&A I didn't notice these details, I couldn't get close enough to the dress, but just in case you can't see what she's done, so this is a print obviously, but to the print she's added these colourful extra organza petals. If I turn over, you can see the dress print has a three-dimensional quality, because see here, these organza petals have been stitched onto the surface of the print. I mean, how's that for an idea? I was really quite excited about that. And then this very pretty little dress with all the bows down the front. It's early 1930s. And it's got all those details we think of in a 1930s dress. If you watch my 1930s video that I did recently, you'll remember that a lot of detail went around the bodice and then around the hips to balance that out, and that's exactly what we see in this dress. And with the flutter sleeves and little collar detail, absolutely classic and pretty 30s dress. And this beautiful 30s dress, I love that very subtle deep ivory colour, and of course the bows at the front, so pretty. This is just dated as somewhere in the 30s, who knows when, 30 to 39 the V&A have put. And we see this in Chanel dresses of the time, these panels bias cut and then just stitched across at the hips there to form that design across the skirt. So pretty, and of course along with that gorgeous colour and print. And then we've got a little bit of tweed there. This is her tweedy looks. Now this is interesting. I'll show you that. Now this dress is, I thought at the exhibition it was made of dark red velvet, but it isn't. It's made of jersey. So really easy to wear on an everyday basis. And I love the deep red, I love the asymmetrical details, and then the simple little contrast necktie. And this is a dress from 1932. And then a beautiful evening dress in that ballet pink again, and silk satin. And of course bias cut silk satin is so what you associate with the 1930s and with Jean Harlow. And here we see that silhouette again, fitted down over the body across the hips and then flaring out into that lovely belly tutu shape, and the chevron effect of going down through the dress. Then we've got black lace, her little black dresses, and it's a wonderful detail. I'll show you the dress in a moment. We saw it in the exhibition, but for dressmakers, how inspirational are those bias cut panels that you can add to a dress. And I have had my nose up to half an inch from this book, and I can tell you that the stitching, there's not a wobble in it. It's extraordinarily accurately done all the way around the edges. And there is the dress, and again in that distinctive shape, square neckline, hugging the body and then flaring out those skirt gauze. And wonderful idea here where you could sew your own flowers. And in fact, I'll just put up another picture because this dress isn't in the catalogue, and these joyful floral prints of the 30s with a little corsage at the neckline, often handmade at the time. Just a really easy, very pretty look. That is something that you always see people in the vintage community wearing, and thoroughly recommend. And we've got the sequins, that shape of dress again, but all done like a mermaid with these wonderful sparkly sequins. And then we have the ballet pink lace, beautiful evening dresses, and a wonderful detail here again in ballet pink. And I can tell you these buttonholes where the ribbon's been pulled through, they're all hand worked. Lovely. I mean, you can't really go wrong with ballet pink chiffon tied in a big bow, can you? Just absolutely delightful. Few of us have the opportunity to wear evening dresses like this, but the idea of black with just this band of white around the hem, that I think is a really effective idea. You could have that on a day dress, couldn't you? A dress or a skirt, black but with this band of ivory ribbon. This is a dress from 1935 in this joyful print, and that's just a close-up they've given us both to show us the print and those wonderful puffy gathered sleeves. And there's the dress. It was one of the ones that I remember most from the exhibition, and you can see it's the fabric's being gathered, so there's a floofy bit right at the back of the dress, and then this bouquet of silk organza flowers around the back of the dress there. A really pretty idea. And here it's another idea for us dressmakers. The dress has been stitched, so it's got band of lace, band of silk ribbon, band of lace, band of silk ribbon. You get the idea. Isn't that effective? It gives that look of stripes, which I just think is lovely. And there is a glamorous person in the 30s wearing it, and a wonderful view of the back of the dress with that cross strap. And of course, backs of dresses were very important in the 30s, as we saw in that red taffeta silk dress I made from Janet Arnold's 30s pattern. And more of this ballet pink lace. And this dress, which we saw in the exhibition, of black sequins, so it kind of shimmers, and the contrast of black sequins with the lace, I think, is very dramatic. And here we see a detail of the dress from the late 30s, 1937, with a distinctive 30s cape, and this, again, you needn't make that quite as dramatic, would you, to wear with this black sequins and this sash of red stripe going down. You could make that idea just in wool or rayon or something drapey, and without the sequins, just having the sash across the waist, the stripes in the skirt and that little detail at the neckline, even in blue and white like a sailor look, that could look really pretty in daytime fabrics. And here is another idea, because this little peplum has just been edged in a striped grosgrain ribbon, but how effective and completely durable. So lovely ideas for dressmakers here. And valley pink lace again. And it's interesting, isn't it, because this is a dress from the 1950s and it doesn't look so terribly different, does it, from the 30s? And that is an interesting thing about that era, is that some fashion historians have pointed out that actually the 40s and wartime interrupted what was already happening in fashion. So in the 30s, skirts were getting fuller. We were already getting that shape in the 30s. And I think in Chanel, when we see that 50s dress, and it looks very much like the 30s. And you might think, where are the 40s? And I would say in this exhibition, it's big and there's lots in it, but there wasn't much from the 40s and there wasn't much from the 50s. It felt like it leapt from the late 30s to the 60s. There are a few of these 50s dresses. This deep red cherry seat from the 1950s. There's this dress from the 1950s, again that shape hugging over the hips and flaring out. And then this is a suit from 1959, but you can tell where we're headed. We're headed to what we associate with Chanel, these Chanel suits. Because when you look at these details, they're fabulous. In the 50s, when you had your waist cinched in, there was a lot of rigging you had to wear in the 50s to look fab in the 50s dress. How freeing these jersey suits would have been. Nice, comfy fabric. Because of its boxiness, you didn't have to cinch in your waist. And really easy, wouldn't they have been, just to put on in the morning, look smart, no awfully uncomfortable cinching in of waists required. So you can see why they became so popular. And you can also see that Chanel added all these little gorgeous details, her bands of colour to them. And of course these distinctive Chanel logo buttons. I think we look at them now and they look a bit like a uniform, don't they? A uniform for a certain kind of quite well-to-do woman, and because they were so popular, associated with slightly more mature women, they don't anymore have a youthful vibe, do they? But I think we just shouldn't lose sight of how revolutionary they were at the time. And now we're on to, of course, the little black dress, little black evening dresses. And then this dress from 1961. Here we have an organza 60s dress. And then I'll just quickly whiz to passing silk lame, very 60s fabric. And more wool and little trouser suits. And I just wanted to, her favourite ballet pink, just get to her, because these were the final clothes we saw in the exhibition, this absolute rainbow of colours. I think if you saw that, you wouldn't instantly think Chanel, would you? It shows how endlessly inventive she was. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you're feeling inspired to add some rather fetching details to your clothes, courtesy of Chanel. And I shall look forward to seeing you next week. Please give this video a like if you reach this stage. Presumably you did like it. And please consider subscribing, and I shall look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.